What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you've had a great start to 2025. This is actually my first episode back on the channel. I've taken a couple of weeks off just to reset, over the Christmas period and the new year, etc. But don't worry, I'm back, and I'm back with a bang. Today I've got two phenomenal revenge stories for you. The first one is just excellent. It's just so well written. It's from r/prorevenge. It's about a homeowners association, and we all know the trials and tribulations that can come with that, and the juicy stories that we've seen in the past. This one is no different. If anything, it's one of the best HOA stories that I've ever read. And the second, well, I won't give too many spoilers away, but that is from r/NuclearRevenge, so you just know it's going to be even more insane. But before we get into the first story, I want to make a little promise to you guys. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about this. But I felt like at times in 2024, sometimes I was making a video for the sake of it, making an episode for the sake of it, and not necessarily finding the very best, the top quality stories out there for you guys. And also, to be honest, not giving you as long episodes as some of you want. Some of you want episodes that are longer than just 10 to 15 minutes. So at the start of this year for sure, and maybe the entire year if you guys enjoy it, I'm definitely gonna try to choose better, longer stories that are more engaging. Let me know in the comments down below what do you think about that, and yeah, let me know if I've got off to a good start with this one, but that's just what I'm thinking. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first episode of 2025, two incredible revenge stories for you. Let's go, we're back. The HOA president's long goodbye. When I moved into my suburban neighborhood, I expected peace and quiet. Instead, I walked into a petty dictatorship run by our HOA president, Todd. Todd was the worst kind of leader, the kind who loved power but hated accountability. He enforced ridiculous rules, like fining people $200 for leaving their trash cans out a minute past 9 a.m, but he then blatantly ignored the rules when it suited him. His own yard was a mess of unpermitted structures, and his fence was taller than allowed by city ordinances. But Todd's true sin? Using the HOA as his personal piggy bank. At first, I tried reasoning with him. My fence was slightly off colour because the approved stain wasn't available, and he fined me $500. I explained, provided receipts, and asked for leniency. But Todd smirked and said, "Rules are rules," and walked away. That's when I decided I would take him down, not with screaming or public arguments, but methodically, legally, and in a way he'd never recover from. Step 1. Become the inside man. Todd's first mistake was underestimating me. I volunteered for the HOA board under the guise of wanting to get involved in the community. I played the part of the eager, naive newbie perfectly. For 2 years, I attended every meeting, quietly observing how Todd operated. I learned that he controlled the board by bullying other members and burying them in paperwork. He'd push through votes when only his allies were present and conveniently lose paperwork submitted by dissenting homeowners. I kept my head down, took detailed notes, and I waited. My goal was to outlast this term as president so I could begin making changes. Then I discovered Todd's second mistake. He wasn't just a bully, he was a thief. Step 2. Follow the money. Todd loved to brag about how he kept the HOA's finances in order, but something didn't add up. The annual HOA fees were high, much higher than in similar neighborhoods, but the common areas were falling apart. The pool was closed half the summer due to maintenance issues, and the landscaping looked like it hadn't been touched in months. I started digging. As the HOA treasurer, Todd had access to all the accounts, but he was notoriously cagey about sharing financial details. I asked for the budget during a meeting, and Todd laughed it off, saying, "Don't worry, I've got it under control." I filed a formal request for the financial records, which, under HOA rules, he was required to provide. Weeks went by with no response, and that is when I started talking to Neighbours. It turns out I wasn't the only one who was suspicious. Over a dozen homeowners had requested access to the budget over the years, only to be ignored. One neighbour claimed that Todd had used HOA funds to install a new patio at his house, while another swore that he'd seen Todd's kids at the community pool during its maintenance closure. Armed with these suspicions, I filed a formal complaint with the HOA board, forcing Todd to provide the records. He stalled, but I wasn't backing down. Step 3. Build the case. When Todd finally handed over the financial documents, they were a mess. Invoices were missing, payments were mislabeled, and some expenses were downright bizarre. A $15,000 landscaping fee paid to a company that didn't exist. Thousands spent on administrative costs with no explanation. I cross-referenced the HOA's bank statements with public records, and I found the smoking gun. Todd was funneling money to his personal accounts. Even better, I discovered that Todd had been inflating contractor fees, pocketing the difference, and splitting the profits with his buddy, a shady contractor who handled most of the HOA's maintenance. I compiled everything into a detailed report, complete with spreadsheets, photos, and notarized statements from neighbors who had seen Todd's antics firsthand. Step 4. The coup. I waited for the annual HOA meeting, which was typically a snooze fest attended by only a handful of homeowners. But this time, I made sure people showed up. I spent weeks knocking on doors, explaining what Todd had been up to. I didn't share everything, just enough to get people angry and curious. On the night of the meeting, the room was packed. Todd started the meeting like usual, droning on about how difficult it was to manage the HOA and how much he'd sacrificed for the community. That's when I stood up. I calmly asked if he could explain some discrepancies in the budget. Todd laughed nervously and said, "I don't think this is the time or place." I replied, "Actually, Todd, it's the perfect time." I handed out copies of my report to everyone in the room, and the mood shifted instantly. People started reading, whispering, and then shouting. Todd tried to regain control, but it was too late. I called for a vote to remove him as president, and by the end of the night, Todd was out. Step 5. The final blow. After Todd was removed, we hired an independent auditor to go through the HOA's finances. They confirmed everything. Todd had embezzled over $50,000, mismanaged tens of thousands more, and committed multiple counts of fraud. We reported him to the police and filed a civil lawsuit to recover the stolen funds. But it didn't end there. Todd's shady contractor buddy was also exposed and banned from doing business in the county. Todd had to sell his house to pay restitution and legal fees. His name became a running joke in the neighborhood, and nobody would touch him professionally. With Todd gone, we restructured the HOA to prevent another dictator from taking over. We implemented term limits, required multiple board members to approve financial decisions, and created an online portal so that all homeowners could access budgets and meeting minutes. The aftermath. Every time I walk past Todd's old house, now owned by a lovely family, I smile. The pool is open, the landscaping is beautiful, and the HOA fees are lower than ever. Todd, meanwhile, moved to a neighboring town where he reportedly tried to join another HOA board, only to be laughed out of the room when someone Googled his name. Justice wasn't just served, it was plated, garnished, and savoured. Okay guys, there we go. That is it for the first story. First of all, I just gotta say, just a brilliant story. Genuinely just so good. I loved every second of that, the way it was written, the aftermath, great. One thing I will say though, and you're gonna have to help me out in the comments down below, those of you that are from America, or I presume this is in America, or just where homeowners associations are more prevalent. Help me out in the comments down below. Just how do they work? Because I would have thought that Todd would go to prison for something like this, because surely this is illegal, right? Or at least would be charged. But the fact that he was seemingly free to then move to another community and try to get on, or try to become president of a new HOA, or at least, go on the board. How is that allowed? It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, stealing that much money, stealing $50,000 and mismanaging tens of thousands more and then not going to prison, that's a massive injustice. Secondly, something else that I want to hear your thoughts on is this. Are you part of an HOA yourself? If you are, please get in the comments down below and let me know how it is. I say this because over the Christmas period, I was in America visiting my grandparents who live in Virginia. And they are part of an HOA and they love it. They say it's great. Obviously you have to pay for it and it's all private, and, if something happens or something needs repairing, or, people want to improve the road, then you got to do that. You got to pay for that yourself. But they say that it really helps keep, all the houses in really good nick. And to be fair, it's a very nice place where they live. Like, you go in and it's super nice. Whereas, around me, sometimes you have a road with potholes and it won't be fixed for seemingly years. because it's up to the council to do it rather than the actual people that live in the neighborhood doing it themselves. But yeah, they say it's great. But then I read stories like this and I'm like, well, really, is it great? I suppose it does depend on who is in charge and who your neighbors are and how it's run. I mean, if their HOA, my grandparents, that is, the president was embezzling or trying to take lots of money out of it, I'm sure they wouldn't say the same things. But yeah, what I want to know is, for those of you that are in HOAs, comment down below. What is it like? Is it more like my grandparents' one, or is it more like the stories I read on Reddit, stuff like what I've just read there? Or does it just massively depend on who is running your HOA and the neighborhood you live in, etc., and the people involved? Yeah, want to hear your thoughts. But without further ado, let's jump into our second revenge story of this one. And this one comes from r/NuclearRevenge. So it's going to be nuclear. Ex-wife steals business. A revenge 2 years in the making. This story involves some legal details, but I'm neither a lawyer nor did I follow those aspects super closely, so sorry for any inaccurate or vague terminology. Buckle up, this will be a long one. Participants. Abe is a young, talented veterinarian. Sophia is his now ex-wife from a very rich family. Yours truly is a humble software developer turned cybersecurity specialist 6 months ago. So let's get into the backstory. Abe and Sophia both worked with my parents, who own a veterinarian clinic. Abe as a veterinarian, Sophia as an assistant. Abe is a bit of a pushover, but a nice guy. Sophia is very manipulative, borderline evil. Around 4 years ago, Sophia was caught stealing from the cash register and was fired. She pushed Abe till he also quit around half a year later. They founded their own veterinary clinic 2 towns over, though much smaller, with Abe being the only doctor. While we all really hated Sophia, and my parents really were mad at Abe for defending her, I still liked Abe, and I wished him the best. I helped him set up a website and some other IT stuff that will come into play later. Okay, so let's get into the story then. So, 2 years after Sophia and Abe started up their own veterinary clinic, it was going well. Legally, Sophia and her family owned 49% of the company. Abe owned 46% and another investor owned 5%. This other investor was supposedly neutral, but turned out to be friends with Sophia's family. Sophia and the investor decided to basically screw Abe out of the business. I don't exactly know why, but having known Sophia for years, I'm assuming Beelzebub warned her she is running low on her quota of ruining lives. Basically, they founded a new veterinary company and started selling the assets of the old company to it for basically no money. Now, of course, since they had over 50% of shares between Sophia and the other investor, they could do this. With this type of organization in my country, 51% control means you have the final say. They couldn't technically just fire Abe, but since they ran the original company into the ground, he was still out. He was the only doctor and did most of the work, and it turned out they had a non-compete clause that meant he couldn't start up a new business. And while he wasn't on the worst possible terms with my parents, the only other clinic in the area that wasn't just a single doctor and could hire him, it was enough of a bridge burned that he basically had no choice of working as a vet in this whole region. So, Abe was left with no job, and all the money he invested into his company was effectively stolen. Oh, and they also tried to screw me out of payment for making them some functionality for the clinic's website that let people reserve time slots and receive veterinarians' notes online, and also for setting up their company emails. So then, the actual revenge. So, Abe was out of luck, and I was out having a drink with him to cheer him up, when the topic turned to who the new veterinarian would be to do the actual work. I'm not insinuating that vet assistants don't do actual work. Sophie specifically doesn't. She is actually afraid of dogs and won't hold them. Abe did all the management stuff on the website and ordering medical stuff, even the cleaning. We had no clue, but I was a tad peed, both up and off, so I decided to check if they removed my access to all the IT stuff when we yelled at each other over payment. They didn't. And they didn't change the company email address's password either. We decided to snoop, which was technically barely not illegal, since Abe was part of the company for like 2 more weeks at the time. And this was an overall company email, not Sophie's. We found 3 applicants, all of whom we immediately and very, very rudely rejected. Veterinary medicine is a small world in this country, so good luck with finding another doctor. The actual nuclear part, however, came 2 years later, when Abe was already in the middle of a very long court battle. Since, as you can imagine, what Sophie and the investor did is not exactly 100% legal. I was cleaning up some stuff on my work laptop when I noticed they still didn't manage to remove my access to their system years later. See, we knew the clinic, the new company, was still going on, but they had a hard time finding veterinarians. I can't imagine why, and the ones they could left quickly. As I poked around in their system, I saw that the veterinarian on the different case logs for weeks at a time was written as Sophie in the internal database. See, as it later came out, she was pretending she was an actual vet when there wasn't a real one employed for weeks, and she even forged prescriptions. Now the thing is, me accessing this info is legally dubious at best. Sharing it with Abe would be even worse. In the last couple of years, however, I was studying cybersecurity to become an ethical hacker. And would you know it, Idiot never learned any cybersecurity me 2 years ago, accidentally left in a vulnerability that a smart attacker could use to read data from the internal database. In layman's terms, you could inject input that would cause the database to send a request to any old server out there containing this confidential data, such as a server an attacker owns. Just a couple of days later, the leaked database showing Sophie's fraud ended up posted anonymously to a forum I happened to read. For legal reasons, it definitely wasn't me who posted it. I just happened to find it right after it was posted from a fresh account, and I archived it in the 15-minute window before the mods deleted it. I did send an email to Sophia when I first saw the issue in the code. I was worried that me accessing the system would show up in the logs and would be suspicious, saying that I found a security flaw while going through my old code and to contact me about fixing it. I must have forgotten that she mainly uses the clinic's main address instead of the one that is like sophie@clinicsname.com, which she checks like once a month at best. How forgetful of me. When Abe's lawyer got the judge to order a full audit of these logs and the prescriptions, Sophie tried to delete the full database, failing to remember the backup it makes every week. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I feel confident giving the advice that trying to delete evidence a judge ordered you to provide does not play well with courts. It strongly looks like she'll end up serving time. As a cherry on top, I helped Abe patch things up with my parents, and he got his old job back. He's been back for a year and just got a promotion and a raise. I'm currently sipping on some rum as I'm typing this that he bought me as a thanks from his first bigger salary. Oh, and one final edit as well. I forgot to originally mention it, but I was reminded while I was replying to a comment. Don't worry, all the animals that Sophia treated are being followed up on by government officials. Abe had access to the logs because of the court case and looked over it as well, though he couldn't follow up with everyone personally. So far, and this is the good news, it looks like she at least didn't harm any animals. She mainly just gave mandatory vaccinations, removed stitches, did drops and sprays against ticks and fleas, that sort of stuff. All perfectly within a practiced veterinary assistant skill set, but still highly illegal, of course. Okay, there we go. That is it for this revenge story. And immediately I want to jump into the comments. Somebody has said, I hope Sophie ends up in jail for a long time. And that makes me think, yeah, like through all of this, I actually have no idea if what she's done, well, I mean, it has to be illegal. Like a lot of the stuff surely has to be illegal. Firstly, there's blatant fraud. But secondly, like the actual like what she did with the company herself, just taking all the money out of it, forcing Abe to leave his job, etc. I get that you have the control of the business, but surely there are laws that mean, okay, I've got 51% control of a business, now I can just completely destroy it and sack all the staff and just, cause them massive trouble, etc, etc. I don't know. Anyway, OP replied to that comment about hoping that Sophie gets jail time, saying, last I heard, the company stuff that they did to Abe is illegal, but it would probably end in just a fine and maybe the non-compete being invalid. But then they move on to talking about obviously the vet stuff, which is potentially very dangerous. I mean, I know the edit is good in the sense that it sounds like nothing bad happened to the animals, but if you're not qualified to be dealing with animals, then surely that is still animal abuse. I mean, surely. Pretending to be a vet without a license, OP says, treating animals and forging prescriptions, each of those three alone could carry a jail time. And then they also finally say, I forgot to add in the post, but at least it looks like she didn't manage to harm any animals. Okay, this is what they then added as an edit at the end. But yeah, still illegal as anything. But there we go. Just crazy stuff. The animal thing in particular, that could have gone seriously wrong. I mean, what if she does seem like the sort of person that would just be like so like stupid in her own mind to just think, oh, you know, actually this is going all right. I know I'm not qualified, but I'm doing all right here. Let's just go one step further and start, like actually diagnosing animals, like doing operations, that sort of stuff. I don't care. I'll do it. Like I'm breaking the law anyway. Who cares? But thankfully, it seems as if it didn't get to that point. Crazy stuff nonetheless. And, you know, ultimately, we don't know if there was no harm done to animals. Maybe we'll get an update on this and see. I just really hope that nothing happened. But there we go. That is going to do it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. First episode back in 2025. This has actually been the longest break I've ever taken from episodes ever. From starting my channel on the 19th of February 2019. Coming up on 6 years there, which is pretty mental. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Did you enjoy it? And will you be back for the next one?